In the classic apologetic book Science Speaks, Professors Peter Stoner and Robert Newman analyze biblical prophecy and the probability of it coming true. Peter Stoner was Professor Emeritus of Science at Westmont College and Professor Emeritus of Mathematics and Astronomy at Pasadena City College. Robert Newman held a PhD in astrophysics from Cornell University and was the Associate Professor of Physics and Mathematics at Shelton College. So the first prophecy they analyze, or event they analyze, is the destruction of the city of Tyre, which was prophesied in the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel was written at around 590 BC, and Ezekiel 26 has all of these prophecies, 7 prophecies about the destruction of Tyre, including Alexander the Great's building of a causeway or a land bridge with rubble from the city. So not only did the team come up with the probabilities for each of the 7 events happening, but they came up with a probability for all 7 events happening. What is the likelihood that all 7 aspects of the prophecy would be fulfilled? Quote, having been given estimates for the probability of the fulfillment of each part of the prophecy, we shall get an estimate of the probability of the fulfillment of the whole prophecy by multiplying all of the estimates together. The chance then of Ezekiel writing this prophecy from his own knowledge and having it all come true is 1 in 3 times 5 times 500 times 10 times 10 times 5 times 20. This is 1 in 75 million. This can be abbreviated as 1 in 7.5 times 10 to the 7th power. The exponent 7 indicates the number of ciphers, digits or zeros, that are to follow the 7.5. If Ezekiel had looked at Tyre in his day and had made these 7 predictions in human wisdom, these estimates mean that there would have been only 1 chance in 75 million of their all coming true. Yet they all came true in the minutest detail. So then, using that same method of probability assignment, these 2 professors calculated 10 more prophecies and put them together to try to find a probability for all 11 prophecies coming true in history. Quote, the probability of these 11 prophecies coming true, if written in human wisdom, is now found by multiplying all of these probabilities together.
1 in 5.76 times 10 to the 59th power.
And as if this wasn't enough to demonstrate their point, they move on to calculate 8 fulfilled prophecies about the Jewish Messiah. The first is found in Micah chapter 5, verse 2. But you, O Bethlehem, who are too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall come forth for me one who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from of old, from ancient days. Quote, this prophecy predicts that the Christ is to be born in Bethlehem. Our answer may be expressed in the form
1 man in 7,150 over 2 billion, or 1 man in 2.8 times 10 to the 5th power, was born in Bethlehem.
The next text is from Malachi 3:1. Behold, I send my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me. Quote, our question here is, 1 man in how many, the world over, has had a forerunner to prepare his way? My students agreed on 1 in 1,000 as being extremely conservative. Most of the members thought the estimate should be much larger. We'll use the estimate of 1 in 10 to the 3rd. Zechariah 9:9. Behold, your king is coming to you. Righteous and having salvation is he, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Quote, our question then is, 1 man in how many who has entered Jerusalem as a ruler has entered riding on a colt, the foal of a donkey? The students agreed to place an estimate of 1 in 10 to the 4th. We'll use 1 in 10 to the 2nd. Zechariah 13:6. And if one asks him, what are these wounds in your hands? He will say, the wounds I received in the house of my friends. 1 man in how many, the world over, have been betrayed by a friend, and that betrayal has resulted in his hands being wounded? 1 in 1,000 was finally agreed upon, though most of the students would have preferred a larger number. Zechariah 11:12. Then I said to them, if it seems good to you, give me my wages, but if not, keep them. and they weighed out as my wages 30 pieces of silver. Of the people who have been betrayed, one in how many has been betrayed for exactly 30 pieces of silver? The students thought this would be extremely rare and set their estimates as 1 in 10,000, or 1 in 10 to the fourth. We will use 1 in 10 to the third. So as you can see, these two professors are trying to be as conservative as possible in their estimates so that nobody can come along and accuse them of fudging the numbers. Zechariah 11:13. Then the Lord said to me, "Throw it to the potter, the lordly price at which I was priced by them." So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord to the potter. This is extremely specific. All 30 pieces of silver are not to be returned. They're to be cast down in the house of the Lord, and they are to go to the potter. You'll recall that Judas, in remorse, tried to return the 30 pieces of silver, but the chief priest would not accept them. So Judas threw them down on the floor of the temple and went and hanged himself. The chief priest then took the money and bought a field of the potter to bury strangers in. Our question is, one man in how many, after receiving a bribe for the betrayal of a friend, had returned the money, had it refused, had thrown it on the floor of the house of the Lord, and then had it used to purchase a field from the potter? The students agreed on an estimate of 1 in 100,000. They were very sure this was conservative. So we'll use the estimate as 1 in 10 to the fifth. Then we have Isaiah 53:7. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth, like a lamb that is led to slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. One man in how many, when he is oppressed and afflicted, and on trial for his life, though innocent, will make no defense for himself? The students placed their estimate as 1 in 10,000, or 1 in 10 to the fourth. So we'll use 1 in 10 to the third. Psalm 22:16. For dogs encompass me, a company of evildoers encircles me. They have pierced my hands and my feet. The students agreed to estimate this probability at 1 in 10,000, or 1 in 10 to the fourth. If these estimates are considered fair, one man in how many men the world over will fulfill all 8 prophecies? This question can be answered by applying our principles of probability. In other words, by multiplying all of our estimates together, or 1 in 2.8 times 10 to the fifth times 10 to the third times 10 to the second times 10 to the third times 10 to the third times 10 to the fifth times 10 to the third times 10 to the fourth. This gives 1 in 2.8 times 10 to the 28th, where 28 means that we have 28 ciphers following the 2.8. Let us simplify and reduce the number by calling it 1 in 10 to the 28th. Written out, this number is 1 in 10, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. What we're really concerned with is the answer to this question. What is the chance that any man might have lived from the day of these prophecies down to the present time and have fulfilled all of the 8 prophecies? We can answer this question by dividing our 10 to the 28th power by the total number of people who've lived since the time of these prophecies, up to the time of this study. The best information available indicates this number to be about 8.8 times 10 to the 10th. To simplify the computation, let us call the number 10 to the 11th. By dividing these two numbers, we find that the chance that any man might have lived up to the time of this study and fulfilled all 8 prophecies is 1 in 10 to the 17th. The number used in this book is very conservative. Let's try to visualize this chance. If you mark one of 10 tickets and place all of these tickets in a hat, then thoroughly stir them, and then ask a blindfolded man to draw one, his chance of getting the right ticket is 1 in 10. Suppose we take 10 to the 17th silver dollars and lay them on the face of Texas. They'll cover all of the state, 2 feet deep. Now mark one of these silver dollars and stir the whole mass thoroughly all over the state. Blindfold a man and tell him he can travel as far as he wishes, but he must pick up one silver dollar and say that this is the right one. What chance would he have of getting the right one? Just the same chance that the prophets would have had of writing these 8 prophecies and having them all come true in any one man. Now, these prophecies were either given by inspiration of God, or the prophets just wrote them as they thought they should be. In such a case, the prophets had just one chance in 10 to the 17th of having them come true in any one man. But they all came true in Christ. This means that the fulfillment of these 8 prophecies alone proves that God inspired the writing of those prophecies to a definiteness which lacks only one change in 10 to the 17th of being absolute. Let's see what happens when we take more than 8 prophecies. Let's consider 48 of the messianic prophecies, similar in their human chance of fulfillment to the 8 which we originally considered. Applying the same principle of probability used thus far, we find the chance that any one man fulfilled all 48 messianic prophecies to be 1 in 10 to the 157th. Let's try to visualize it. The silver dollar is entirely too large. We must select a smaller object. The electron will do. It's so small that it will take 2.5 times 10 to the 15th of them laid side by side to make a line, single file, 1 inch long. If we were going to count the electrons in this line 1 inch long and counted 250 each minute, and if we counted day and night, it would take us 19 million years to count just the 1 inch line of electrons. If we had a cubic inch of these electrons and we tried to count them, it would take us 1.2 times 10 to the 38th years. That's 2 times 10 to the 28th times 6 billion years. With this introduction, let's go back to our chance of 1 in 10 to the 157th. Let's suppose that we're taking this number of electrons, marking 1, and thoroughly stirring it into the whole mass, then blindfolding a man and letting him try to find the right one. What chance has he of finding the right one? What kind of pile will this number of electrons make? They make an inconceivably large volume. Let us make a solid ball of electrons, extending in all directions from the Earth to the distance of 6 billion light years. Have we used up our 10 to the 157th electrons? No. We've made such a small hole in the mass that we can't see it. We can make this solid ball of electrons extending in all directions to the distance of 6 billion light years 6 times 10 to the 28th times. Now imagine one of these electrons is marked and thoroughly stirred into the whole mass. Blindfold your man and ask him to find the marked electron. To the extent that we know this blindfolded man cannot pick out the marked electron, we know that the Bible is inspired. It's proof of the Bible's inspiration by God. Proof so definite that the universe is not large enough to hold the evidence. Some will say that our estimates of the probability of fulfillment of these prophecies are too large and the numbers should be reduced. Ask a man to submit his own estimates, and if they're smaller than those we've used, we'll add a few more prophecies to be evaluated, and this same number will be either reestablished or perhaps exceeded, because there are more than 300 prophecies dealing with Christ's first advent, not 48. You could set your estimates ridiculously low and still obtain tremendous evidence of inspiration. For example, you may place all of your estimates at 1 in 4. You may say that 1 man in 4 has been born in Bethlehem, that 1 of these children in 4 was taken to Egypt to avoid slaughter, that 1 in 4 of these came back and made his home in Nazareth, 1 in 4 of these was a carpenter, that 1 in 4 of these was betrayed for 30 pieces of silver, and 1 in 4 of these has been crucified on a cross. 1 in 4 was buried in a rich man's tomb. Yes, even that 1 in 4 rose from the dead on the 3rd day, and so on, for all of the 300 prophecies. And from them, I'll build a number much larger than the one we obtained from the 48 prophecies. Any man who rejects Christ as the Son of God is rejecting a fact proved perhaps more absolutely than any other fact in the world.